Welcome! This video is going to help you become an expert at graphing equations in your calculator and using your calculator to determine the different characteristics of the graph. So I put some directions at the top, just some steps that we're going to follow in general. Hopefully you've seen a graphing calculator like this before and you've decided if either you have your own or you maybe have used the app on your Chromebook and installed that, or maybe you're using an app on your phone. Either way, you need a TI-84 looking calculator to use these steps. If you have questions about that, you can check Canvas or ask your teacher. So now that we have our calculators, all I've done is turn it on. The button that we're going to use for all of our graphing today is the y equals button. So this y equals here is actually the button in the very top left corner of our calculator. If there's anything in there right now, I just want you to hit clear so that there's nothing written. Your screen will probably look something like this. This is where we're going to type an equation that we want to view in our calculator. So for our first example, I'm just going to say, let's do y equals 4x. So I'm going to type 4, and then there's a special button that you have to use for x. It's next to the green button, and it's x, comma, t, comma, called a theta, looks like a circle, comma, n. This button, when you press it, will create the x we see on our screen, and then we have to tell the calculator what to do. So we want to see a graph, and that button is in the top right corner of your calculator. Ah, there we go. I see a line telling me, oh, this must be linear. Okay, so a couple other things before we start graphing all types of lines. It's important that you also know how to graph a fraction. Or not graph, how to type a fraction in your calculator. So if you want to go back to the home screen where we do all of our calculations, I'm going to make a little note. We're going to press second and then mode. Both of those are buttons. They're right next to each other. To get back to the home screen. Sometimes I see students just click randomly until they get there, and that's frustrating. And I don't want you to be frustrated. So second mode. Awesome. Back to the clear home screen where I can do all my calculations. We're going to practice making a fraction, and you can even double check some of your math with fractions in the calculator. I want us to do negative 1/3 divided by 5/6. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what we're going to get and how we type that. We are going to press the alpha button and then y equals. So both alpha and y equals are buttons. Alpha is the green one. Y equals is the top left corner. And then you're going to choose the first option, n divided by d, numerator over denominator. And that's going to create a nice fancy fraction in your calculator. So I'm going to type negative 1, but I need to remind you that there's actually a separate negative button at the bottom. It's not the subtraction button on the side. It is negative, so let's make a little note. So negative is at the bottom of the calculator. There it is, if you need to see that again. And then I need to move using the down arrow so that I can type the 3 in the bottom of the fraction. If you keep typing, you're going to be still in the bottom of the fraction. So your calculator is telling you to hit the right arrow so that you can move on past that first fraction. I'm going to use the divide button on the right side. And then I need another fraction, so I'm going to use the same steps of alpha, y equals, and hit enter, 5/6. Okay, it did the calculations for me and gave me -2 fifths. Okay, so that's just a little bit of practice on how to use your calculator to help you with fractions. I want us to continue talking about how I can use my calculator for graphing, and then I want us to review some of this vocabulary we've been talking about in Unit 1. We're going to graph 5 different functions together and determine their type, and then answer a question about them. So notice the first 3 all start with f of x. Hopefully you remember from last time we talked about how f of x is just a different notation, a different way to write y. So instead of f of x, we're still going to go to the y equals button in the calculator. I'm going to hit clear so that the equation we graphed earlier is gone. And then I'm going to start graphing this new equation. So when I see f of x, I know that's the same as if I wrote this with a y equals. All right, so 3x. And then if you see like a value being taken away, a minus between 2 terms, it wants you to use an actual subtraction sign. So 3x, and we're subtracting 7. I'm just trying to make sure you know the difference between when to use a negative and when to use a subtraction sign. And let's go take a look by hitting graph. I see a line. So this function is linear. Maybe you already realized that when you saw its equation, since there were no exponents at all. And as I look at this line from left to right, I can see it's going up. So it is an increasing graph. Awesome. The calculator made that really easy. Let's try another one. Y equals, you can graph multiple lines or multiple equations at the same time, but that can get confusing to know which one's which. So I'm just going to hit clear and then type my next equation. Whenever you see a negative at the beginning in front of the equation, it's actually telling you, hey, this is a negative, not a subtraction. So it's a negative sign if it's in the very front of the equation, but a subtraction if it's between 2 different parts of the equation. So remember the negatives at the very bottom. Then I'm going to type x. And then there's actually a squared button. You might see it. It's on the left side, diagonal from the 7. It has x squared on it. And it'll square that for us. And then I'm going to hit +1. Once it's typed, we'll go graph it. Well, I see a U-shaped graph. So that means we have a quadratic function. And then if I go look at it, I can see it has a highest point here at the top. So it has a maximum and not a minimum. Okay, awesome. Let's try the next type. All right, so hopefully you can see it starts with a decimal. The decimal is also found at the very bottom next to the negative. So 0.5, ooh, this x is an exponent. So there's a special button on our calculator on the right side above divide, and I call it a caret. That button will take your cursor and make it the exponent, and now I can fill it with an x. Now if I keep typing, I'm going to be typing little numbers as the exponent. So I need to hit the right arrow again, like before, so that my cursor moves down and I can actually type the -2. And graph. Oh, awesome. I see a curved graph. It looks like it's an exponential function. I am going to make a little note. When you need to make something an exponent, that's when you use the caret. And as I follow from left to right, I can see that I have a decreasing graph. Okay, we have just a couple left. Now I notice it says y equals. Okay, great. Well, we're still going to go to y equals. I'm going to hit clear, 2x squared. So let's work on typing that. 2, x button, and then squared on the left side. Okay, great. I see another U-shaped graph. So we have another quadratic. And let's look at it again. I see that it has a lowest point. Therefore, it has a minimum. All right, awesome. I'm hoping you're seeing that the graphing calculator makes this so much easier. Okay, last but not least, let's try number 5. Ooh, we get to put our fraction skills to use here. So if you need those steps again, remember it's alpha, y equals, and then the first option. So on the y equals screen, I'm going to type alpha, y equals, pick that first option, 2/3. Notice my cursor is still on that bottom of the fraction, so I'm going to hit the right arrow and then put my x. Let's go take a look. Right, I see a line, so we have another linear function, and I can see from left to right it's increasing. And you may have known that about both of these lines, since you see a positive slope, or that rate of change that's with x. It's going to help us know that it's increasing when we get to that unit, even without using our calculator. Okay, I hope that this video has been helpful. Please let your teacher know if you have any questions, or feel free to come to my tutorials as well.